Welcome back, everybody. This is going to be episode 63 of An Untold Narrative, where we feature underground creatives who don't have a blue check mark, who don't have a massive following, but are doing unbelievably talented and creative things. And today's guest is no different. And I had the pleasure of being on her podcast recently. Mackenzie Ryan, I believe, is your last name. Maybe it's your stage name, but thanks for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. This is my first podcast where I'm not on your side, so this is fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so happy to feature first timers. Like that's what I that's definitely probably like 75% of the guests on here. So I'm pretty excited to kind of
Oh,
keep
that's cool. Yeah.
a high percentage of people who haven't been interviewed or had a conversation like this before. So I'm stoked.
Awesome.
You are a singer and songwriter, I believe, is your main profession, but it seems like you do a ton of other things. So what's your 30-second elevator pitch about yourself?
Oh my gosh, my 30
And
second
by the way, before you get to that, for those watching on YouTube, you should totally check out her facial expression when I asked that question.
The worst. My facial expressions are awful. I wear it on I wear my face on my face. Yeah. So anyway, my 30-second elevator pitch, I'd have to say that I'm all around a very creative person. I use creativity in everything I do. I'm first and foremost a musician and songwriter, / producer. I'm also a digital artist, / graphic designer. So my other major profession on top of everything is graphic design. I've been doing that for quite some time. I studied art history in college, and I've just always kind of been in a creative vein. I don't know. Anything that's creative, I'm kind of all over it. And with the podcast now too, I've learned a lot about video production and editing, which has been really cool. So anything creative, I'm just like, sign me up.
That's an incredibly diverse resume.
Yeah.
More so than I thought you had. So I appreciate you sharing all of that.
Yeah.
So if you go to like your website, it's
Mm-hmm.
all like music, right? And so where are you? Are you like in like Nashville, Tennessee or something, like the music capital, or where are you?
No, I'm not. So my music website is all up and you can go see that. I am located right outside of DC, about 30 miles from DC. I was in New York City previously to being right outside of DC, and I was doing a little bit of music up there. I've spent time in Nashville, but I've never lived there. So
Gotcha. And where were you?
yeah.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from right outside of DC.
Oh, okay.
So I'm actually, when I moved back from New York City to take a job in Arlington, which is like right outside of DC. And then when COVID all happened and like things were really kind of all over the place, my lease was up in Arlington, and I actually moved back to my hometown to kind of like feel it out. And now I'm just kind of, just doing that. So it's good.
That's amazing. And have you always been like creative or musically inclined, or like how did it all happen? I'm assuming you started somewhere and then you kept branching out over and over. Do you start in graphics and then you just do singing part-time and make some TikToks and go viral? Like how did it come to be?
I love that question because I feel like there's a lot of misconception with my musical talent. I was always creative growing up, super creative. From like the first thing I can ever remember creatively doing was my mom was making me clean, and I put socks on my hands and created this like whole play. And I was like probably 5 or 6, and like made everybody sit down and like watch me do this whole thing. And that kind of just like toppled into me never sitting still and just always constantly doing stuff. I would freeze the TV and like draw what I saw, and like I have them downstairs, like all framed and stuff. And it's crazy. So like I was constantly drawing, I was constantly, creating these plays, and we set up stuff when I was younger, and we did like newscasting and like all this stuff. And then as I got a little bit older, I always had like an ear for music, but I wouldn't say that I had any like natural ability. I got a drum kit when I was like 12 and kind of started with the drums. And then I wanted to audition for a play, and my mom was like, okay, well, let's look at the music you have to sing. And I sang it, and it was god awful. Like my mom was like, you can dance, you can, let's stick to dancing. So I did dancing lessons all growing up, but I was like really caught up in like this idea that I wanted to sing. And so I just didn't stop. We got voice lessons for me. And I just like, I was really lucky on that kind of lane, because the person who ended up teaching me majority of what I knew vocally, we just got each other, and I understood what she was saying. And I'm a very visual person, and she explained it to me in a very visual way. So once it clicked, music really started to click for me. And then I went and got classically trained with vocals. I taught myself guitar, I taught myself piano, ukulele, kind of doing a bunch of different instruments too right now. But yeah, I had that initial spark for music, but the talent really kind of came after I had to like understand it within my head first, which is, I don't know, it's kind of weird.
So but maybe this is my naivete, but like I always thought that like singers specifically like needed some sort of organic talent, and it sounds like you got more trained than you had it from the start.
Yeah, kind of. I definitely think I always had this big voice, but I had no control because I didn't know how to control it. And I think having that training allows you to, even if you don't have a voice, if you can breathe properly, you can sing. And I stand by that. You have to breathe properly, you can sing. And that's kind of what my first vocal teacher taught me. It was like breath control and like breathing exercises. And that's where it clicked for me, that if I had that solid, breath down, I could make this work. And then that was just kind of when I took opera lessons, like that's all you worked on was your breath. So
that's amazing. My like one thing in life that I can't do, and I've tried, is like to rap, and I want to be a rapper so fucking bad. And it sounds like I could just teach myself, because I have a dog shit voice. So sounds like you're telling me that dream isn't too far away.
No, don't give up. Don't give up on it. Yeah, no, for sure.
What would you classify like your style of music or kind of singing as?
Man, it's interesting because I play out all the time, right? And majority of what I'm playing out is covers, because people want to hear cover music. Sure. And I would say that I'm kind of all over the place with that. I do a lot of classic rock. I do a lot of funk and soul, and kind of trickle into music of today. But to be honest, like there's certain things I listen to that are out today, but I have a really hard time with connecting with a lot of the music that's out right now. But my personal style, like the music I really like, it's weird. It's kind of like a tropical house, a lot of instrumentals, like, vocal sampling. It's more on like the production side, which is something I'm also tackling right now, because I haven't released any music ever, which is insane, because I've been a professional musician for a long time, but I haven't released anything because I don't connect with the stuff I play out all the time, but I connect with the stuff I'm producing, which is, I don't know if that makes sense.
So we'll jump ahead. Are you planning on releasing something in the near future?
Oh yeah. Yes.
I was like,
I'm just taking my time. Everyone's like, you need to come out with music. Just like, I want to feel good about the stuff that I come out with,
Yeah, totally. But I think in 2022, the opportunities are like, and like all you need is this thing, and click record and go on TikTok, and next thing you know, you're viral.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty beautiful.
Exactly.
But that's amazing. That's definitely something to keep an eye out on. How much like time consumption goes into, like you mentioned, singing, songwriting, producing? Like, do you divide them up into thirds? Like, how do you like operate in your like mental capacity of like splitting them up?
It's challenging, because I try to anybody who's creative, I think, can get this, but you're not always creative in a moment, right? Or you're not always feeling like you're on at a specific time. So I try to listen to my body, and I try to see like if I'm in a creative mode, that I do this. If I feel like sitting down at the piano, I sit down at the piano. If I feel like sitting down and creating beats, I sit down and I create beats. But that's hard when you have also a whole other life too, and you have a million other things you want to think of. Trying to maintain a schedule is semi-important. So I try to structure my day in like hour blocks, where I'll do like but I stay like flexible to it. If it's not, you know, feeling that way for me, I do something different. But I'll do like an hour of piano, I'll do an hour of guitar, I'll do 30 minutes of ukulele, 30 minutes of harmonica, an hour of writing. I'll do like 2 hours of research. And I kind of, and then I do like graphic design stuff, and then I work on my digital art. And then, you know, there's also working out and like eating right and all that other stuff. But I try to stay like very like, okay, this is enough time, like move on. Like this is enough time here, move on, you know, just trying to exercise every muscle.
And so you're self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So you literally have to like hold yourself accountable every single
Oh
day.
yeah. 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 Yeah, exactly.
And your digital art or your graphic design, is that all freelance work, or is that like self work that you're just selling online, or?
Both. So I have a graphic design company business where I have
Oh,
clients, and you know, I'm contracted out for work. And then I have my digital art side was kind of built out of having to do, because I was part of a restaurant group for a couple of years, and we always needed graphics, and that was really hard to like outsource, because you know, they'd be like, hey, we can handle it in like a next week or so, and we're like, well, we need it today. So that's actually where I started doing graphics, just out of a need for it. And I remember sitting there, and this was years and years ago, and I was like, this is really fun. Like you get to be creative and do stuff. What would it be like if I could sit down for a couple minutes and just do this for myself, like create art, just, you know, for me. Cause I was always doing art in college because I studied art, and that was really fun, but I had never done it digitally. So out of that need, the digital art kind of came out. And one of my biggest idols is Caitlin Gravenstein. She has the Instagram cult class, and I was always seeing what she was doing with her digital art, and just talk about inspiration. I was like, I think I can like do stuff like that. Like, let's give it a shot with zero expectations, right? Like it's just a way to be creative, and it's been really fun.
and how did you, so, okay, you started based out of a need or a necessity, or like your
Yeah.
employer was like, okay, hey, we need somebody to do this. But like, how did you learn graphic design? Like, I'm assuming, did you just download Illustrator and just start like hacking away at it?
Kind of, yeah. I was self-taught with that. I just turned on the programs, Photoshop, Illustrator, like kind of use the buttons that like glow and tell you what to do. I went to YouTube University, like everybody else, watched endless videos. But then I actually was on YouTube, and this thing popped up, and it was, I think LinkedIn has since bought the program, but it was something called lynda.com,
Yes.
Lynda
Yes.
for anybody. Yeah. And I was inside and out of that program. Like woke up at 6 a.m., like did 6-hour courses, like was just, you know, and like some of it was like so unnecessary, but like I just couldn't get enough of learning like buttons and like how to, you know, do it. So I did that for like 6 months, and then just kind of just made at like I created stuff for my company as I was doing that, but like just progressively got a little bit better and a little bit better.
And
Yeah.
so how long have you been like doing your own business in graphics?
Um, I think I'm on year 2 of being, I'm like a year and a half into being like
So
fully by
this is
myself.
super fresh.
Super fresh. Oh yeah, super fresh.
Yeah,
hmm
yeah. So what were you doing prior to that?
I was part of a restaurant group. So I was running all like the digital assets and marketing for a restaurant group that had 5 or 6, you know, one coming and going and one opening location. So I was doing that, and they were based in Arlington.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, now that you're kind of
Yeah.
on your own and figuring it
Yeah.
out, do you like being, you know, kind of on your own and kind of self-structuring your days, or like is it more challenging, or kind of, because that's always like the one of the big, you know, kind of ping pong matches people have in their head of like working for an organization, or, you know, being self-employed. Like, do you have that self-discipline? Like,
hmm
is it a challenge for you? Like, have you gotten used to it now, like with COVID and everything? Like,
hmm
where do you stand? Do you miss like working for a company?
It's a great question, because I feel like it's like I can go either way with it. I love working for myself because I am very my self discipline is great when it works for what I need to do. I like having the freedom to kind of build my own day. just because, I mean, when you go from working for a company where like, I mean, I was working like 15-hour days and like, it was exhausting, and that's great when it's a company that's awesome. And I loved the people that I worked with, and it was great. It was super demanding. And I found that when there was a toss up with that, like my health was declining and I wasn't paying attention to my needs. And yeah, this was getting done. This was all covered, but I was being completely neglected and stressed out. And I mean, like bouts in the hospital and like all, I mean, it was bad. So when I look at my life quality now versus what it was, I like what I do now. But it's an interesting question, kind of two-part, because now that I'm involved with Web3 and like, you know, being a part of Overt and working on NFTs now, and seeing what it's like to work with a community of like-minded people, that's what makes me miss working in that community type of atmosphere. Because
Sure.
you know, when other, I feel like Web3 is full of people that are like super positive and they work on themselves and like they want to be around like other like-minded people. That's what makes me miss working with other people. But
Gotcha. No, I completely agree with you that those communities within Web3 are definitely like that. And we will talk before we jump into Overt and kind of how you got involved in that. I do want to go back to what you just said,
yeah,
because I think it's really interesting, and I'd like to push on the thought a little bit more of like, there's probably a lot of people who are working a job where they're getting, you know, pushed and they're stressed and they're worried about themselves, but they feel stuck, or they feel like they have to do this
yeah.
day in and day out and there's no other option. You
Mm-hmm.
obviously reached a breaking point at some, and then had to make an executive decision, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
talk about that if you don't mind, of like
Mm-hmm.
what was that process like? What, you know, was there an instance that just came up and like that's what changed your perspective? Or, oh mom, I'm not answering right now. I'm gonna cut that out. But like,
No, that's
was there something that like hit you really hard and like then changed your perspective, or like what, talk about that process?
yeah. It's a great question. So, and I feel for people that, you know, are stressed out, or even people that say you escape on the weekends, right? Like you just are looking to go out and like booze and have fun. And I mean, that's fun, but there comes a point, and there came a point for me. I can't really speak on anybody else. I can just speak from my own experience, but there came a point in my life where I felt like I was trying to just escape my life. And don't get me wrong, I loved what I was doing and I had a passion for what I was doing, but it didn't agree with every facet of my life. And I turned a blind eye to that, and just did what I thought I needed to do in order to pay the bills and, you know, be a normal person in society. But when I kept ignoring the needs of my body, and like, don't get me wrong, if you feel like, if you have anxiety, or if you are feeling like that you're crawling out of your own skin at times, like your body is trying to tell you something.
Right.
And I was getting to, every 6 months I was in the hospital. Every 6 months I was for these unbelievable bouts of pain that nobody could explain. And this stemmed like probably 5 years, where I was just in and out of the hospital, and everyone was like, what's going on with you? And I saw doctors all over the country for what was going on. And, you know, I was on a lot of medication, a lot of stuff that was prescribed to me, because you get depressed, you get, you know, I can't focus on my job. Okay, well then here's some Adderall, because that's going to help you. But also with the Adderall, you're probably going to be depressed because you're also on birth control and you're also on these other things. So here's a cocktail of shit that's going to make you feel better. That shit doesn't make you feel better. It didn't make me feel better. It made me really, really worse. And that kind of snowballed out of control, where when you're on all that shit and you become not who you are, it's you're a shell of the person that you truly are. And it kind of hits a breaking point. It has to hit a breaking point, because when you're on all that stuff, you're not feeling anything. So then you reach to other things to feel something, whether that's alcohol, or whether, you know, it's marijuana, or it's something, because you've lost all feeling. And for me, that hit a breaking point in 2017. I had a full-blown seizure from all the medicine I was on, and nearly killed me. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. And I had to get real with myself. I had to get real with my stress. I had to get real with my anxiety, and I had to look at myself in the face and be like, why don't you like yourself right now? What's you got to break this down. And that's when I started to work on myself. And that's when I started to say, work is work, but I need to be okay. And I need to focus on myself. And even the next year out of that was tough because I got off of everything. I totally detoxed. And that was hard. That was not like the detox, but finally feeling yourself again and going through emotions and not reaching for something else to numb that and being like, no, I need to feel this. I need to remember what it's like to be human, and talk about a wake-up call, because then you're analyzing you're analyzing how you treat others, you're analyzing how you treat your job and the things that you're passionate about, and you kind of return to the things that actually matter. And I feel like I was brave enough to do that because I had the love of my family to be like, you need to do this before it gets, really, really bad. And I did. And I never looked back. I just kept moving forward, and every day it got easier. And I just started to value the things that, are highly valuable to me, and my health. And I started learning about, what made me think I had anxiety in the first place. And, breathing exercises really helped me, and just kind of returning to the basics, and saying no to all the things that weren't helping, And I think I need to come back to your question of, actually, I forgot your question. I went on the longest tangent.
No, that's some seriously, I had chills down my spine the entire time you were speaking. That's very, very powerful. I apologize that you had to go through that, but it sounds like you've made the best.
It was the best thing.
And you're definitely better for it now that you've kind of come to those huge realizations, and that's challenging, right? Like hitting that wall, and it's such a young age too, but you think that's what you need to do. You need to work really hard, and you need to make a living, and you need to do these things, and then you sacrifice yourself for all of that work.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody who's listening and who's maybe going through a similar situation like that, knows in deep down in them that something's off, but can't make the switch or doesn't know where to start? Is there something that you would tell somebody like that?
I'd honestly, I would say, because anybody who's listening who has that thought in the back of their mind that, something's off, I would say it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel whatever feeling you're feeling. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to have no idea of the direction you're headed. It's okay to feel like you're kind of at a loss for words, or you don't feel loved, you don't feel accepted. Feel it, be brave, feel it, but let it go, and then start taking steps to not feel those things. Start analyzing your life. What kind of food are you eating? What kind of habits do you have? How do you wake up in the morning? Are you grateful when you wake up in the morning? Or are you already waking up with the negative mindset? Do you do breath work? Do you get outside and put your feet in the ground? Do you go out and get a little sunshine? What kind of healthy habits do you have? Start there, and then start working back the negative things that you have. How do you treat people? How do you talk to people? How do you want people to talk to you? Break yourself down. It's almost like, this is the worst analogy ever, but it helps visually. Those bloomin' onions from that restaurant, with the steak restaurant, there's a bloomin' onion what is that? Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, Outback Steakhouse.
And the onions that they're balled over like a flower. Those start out as a circle, right? And then they crack open, and there's all those delicious pieces, right? You have to crack yourself open like a bloomin' onion to get to the good stuff.
This podcast is sponsored by Outback Steakhouse.
Outback Steakhouse, thank you. Yeah, literally. But no, that's what you have to do. You have to crack in order for the light to get in. And I remember talking with you on my podcast where you had a point where everything clicked for you, and that was the point for me. And I feel like back in that time had somebody say like, Mac, it's okay to feel like you have the world's weight on your shoulders. It's okay. It's all right. You just got to feel it and let it flow through you. And then just embrace all the good shit you have in your life, you know?
Isn't it? It is pretty phenomenal that when you get broken down and you break yourself down, like how simple, like you don't need a lot of things around you. You don't
Nothing.
to really like enjoy the day to day and enjoy being yourself. It's very like life can be broken down so simply, but
Yeah.
we overcomplicate it with,
We choose to do that.
yeah, with people, with products, with you know, how important, you mentioned this, and we can kind of shift into the overt side of things. You mentioned like the communities of Web3, but like how important is it to like surround yourself with like-minded people, right? Like I'm assuming that's why the overt crew, you know, even from the people that I've been blessed to get to know from that business, is everybody seems like has a similar mindset.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean it's very cool. The founder of Overt I went to high school with.
Oh shit.
I've known him for a long time. Yeah, we've been good friends for a long time, and it's awesome to be in business with him. It's awesome to kind of see him, you know, flourish in this space because he's so passionate about it. And I value the time I've been able to spend with all the Overt members because it's a very similar mindset. You know, building the community was the goal, right? Like building a community for artists, by artists, for creatives, by creatives, to just build in the space and connect. And you know, that I love that initiative. I like that ethos. And I feel like surrounding yourself with people who you get to choose, right? You get to choose who you spend your time with. And I can't stress that it's very important to pick wisely.
Yeah, no, for sure. And definitely for those who haven't checked them out, check out OVRT
Yes.
.xyz, I think it is,
Yes,
which is super
exactly.
cool. It's a cool community. Join their Discord. That everybody's super nice and positive and uplifting. And even if you know nothing about Web3 or anything like that, like it's just cool to be around people who are
Exactly.
ready to
Yeah.
just give you a boost of energy in the day. Um,
Yeah.
how did you get involved into Web3, right? Like it's still very early. A lot of people who listen to this podcast still are probably sick of me talking about it, or like haven't spent the time to get into it, or like whatever it is. But like what was your entry like?
So I was in Web 2 because I was building websites and doing all of that
Sure.
with, you know, okay. So Ryan and I actually built, Ryan, the founder of OVRT .xyz, in case Ryan and I were building a website for somebody back in 2019. And, you know, Web3 wasn't a conversation at that point, but like him and I both had the mindset of like, it would be really cool to have some sort of, not like a startup, it's technically not a startup, but some sort of like community project. And then fast forward 2 years, you know, go by, and he calls me one day in December and he's like, Mac, let me tell you about something. And I was like, okay, what is it? He was like, I think I have a really cool idea. And he told me, at first it was called Dead President Society. And I was like, what is Web3? I was like, what is this? Like, what is an NFT? Like, this is nuts. And he like, you know, kind of explained it a little bit to me, and it just sounded like this is dope. And you know, I think at some point you're gonna have to make, everyone who's in Web 2 is gonna have to make the decision if they want to, you know,
100%.
jump aboard or not. But it's, if I can say anything to kind of persuade somebody to do it, having been in Web 2 and now being in Web 3, like the energy, man. I mean, you're going from like a scare tactic environment to like a love and welcoming, like everybody is just positive and respectful environment. It's dope.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's that's a great. I haven't heard somebody speak it in that perspective, so that's amazing. I'm totally gonna steal that because you're absolutely right. Um, you did talk about your digital art, um,
Yeah.
and so talk about that, because I did click. If you go to your Instagram, which we'll get into later, like and you did click around, like you do have like a digital art page, which seems a little bit
Yeah.
like more unique. It's more kind of creative. It's very like abstract. It's fun. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very like unique. Like, do you do that more as like an outlet than like a business generation, or like?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I created that page. It's silk.circuit. And that name kind of is like a merge of masculine and feminine energy. So energy represented in the circuit aspect, and then feminine energy represented in the silk, like a spider. But a spider is like a feminine energy to me. So that's how I got the name. And basically, that page is like a creative outlet for me that also is like a journey of what I've been through since 2017, and like coming my light turning on basically, and becoming more of a whole person. And so that artwork is I would kind of describe it as it's surrealism. It's just kind of abstract and a lot of kind of weird ideas in my brain. And there was no goal for it. It was only just a different mechanism, different vehicle to be creative. Yeah, so there's really no goal with it. I just really like doing it, and I only do it when I feel like it, you know, like it's not something I schedule time for. It's just when if I'm sitting down, I'm thinking about, you know, the principle of detachment and letting things go. And I think like, oh, well, I want to create a piece to kind of symbolize that moment in my life where I'm thinking of detachment and I'm trying to implement it into my daily life. And I go create a piece of artwork surrounding it, and I just send it out there.
That's
So
amazing.
all the little titles are, if you go through and read the titles, you're like, oh, okay.
Do you plan on like releasing them as NFTs or no?
Yeah, I'm doing research right now on how to do like the one-on-ones, and trying to figure out what marketplace I want to use. But Matt Corrado, our artist for over its NFT, said something that really stuck with me, and he was like, you know, do the research and take the time to do the research, and that's kind of where I'm at now with it. But yeah, I definitely do plan on releasing them.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, I think they fit into that ecosystem perfectly. So
Yeah, thanks.
exciting.
Yeah.
As you kind of go forward now, being, I don't know if you consider yourself an entrepreneur, kind of like a self-go-getter in many, like whether it's music or whether it's art or whether it's graphics or whatever it is, do you have like a plan for yourself, or do you very much like take it like day by day?
I'm a very day by day person. That goes with like every aspect in my life, not just work. I mean, I'm just so grateful to kind of like what you said. Like, I'm just so fucking jazzed to like wake up in the morning that like when anybody asks me about tomorrow, I'm like, I am on today. Like, I am just so happy about today that I'm not even, that's so far away for me. I think the only plan I have is to wake up every day and be happy, because there are so many days that doesn't happen, and you have to just kind of be real with yourself and fight through that and just allow it to pass right through, you know. And I feel like my goal is to just keep creating, is to release music that I love, that's a part of me, to keep releasing art that I love, that it's a part of me, and to grow every day. You know, I might look back in this podcast like in 6 months and be like, I don't even feel that way about shit anymore. Like,
Sure.
I don't know, you know, because every day I feel like I'm a new person. It's
Sure.
great.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, what a beautiful time to be
Yeah.
that person within yourself. Like that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, right? Like I used to be the person with a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, and now it's like, I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Like
Yeah, I mean, goals are good, right? Like making goals for yourself, like, you know, short-term goals, long-term goals. I get that. Like if people do that and that's what gets them jazzed, like no hard feelings. That's, for me, it's just, you know, I'm so happy with where I'm at, and I just want to keep harnessing the creative energy that I have, that I'm just so proud of myself for doing what I'm doing, that the expectations have just dwindled away to nothing, because I just want to keep creating.
That's awesome. No, totally agree with you. So part of the things that you are creating is obviously the podcast, which thank you for having me again.
You're welcome. We'll have to have you on again.
I mean, yeah, maybe, well, or maybe in the future. Yeah. Let me do some other cool shit. Is there like I mean, talk about the day to day, but I'm assuming you have some sort of plan or strategy with the podcast. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's called Coming Up Creative. You obviously feature artists and creatives very similar to this podcast, but like, do you think about like what the scope of the future of that is?
Yeah, kind of, because as I continue into Web3 and like mainly what I'm doing, spending most of my time doing now is just research, just reading, just seeing what people are doing, seeing what's happening with, you know, the foundation infrastructure. And I'm trying to see, because like season one was awesome because like we talked to a lot of creative people and that was really cool to see. But now as I'm like really getting into Web3 and I'm seeing what people are building, kind of like on that developer side, there's a lot of creativity in the builders. And I'm kind of thinking about maybe shifting gears a little bit from talking to artists to talking to the builders and talking to people who are launching, you know, new Web3 startups or communities and kind of get their take on. So I feel like the infrastructure and all that is still so much in its infancy that I want to kind of talk to the people who are putting those like legs in, you know, to see what their goals are, what their plans are, and trying to see like what's happening. But you get it. I mean, you know how it is to have a podcast. I'm trying to just like let it take its own shape, you know, just trying to talk to people. Like people are so cool.
Literally a few hours ago today, somebody asked me like, hey, do you ever like plan on like taking the podcast somewhere? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I do it through like, what do you want from me? I do it in my spare time. Like I do it for free. Like, I don't know. I just like talking to
exactly. Well, because it's also like it's a form of networking. It's a form of just meeting people that we don't live in the same city. Like how else would I have, you know, I had the pleasure of talking to you now twice, and I'm like, I feel like we're friends, but like unless you're like crawling out on Twitter spaces left and right, like you got to do something else too to meet people.
Facts, huge facts.
Big facts.
Where I get two more questions for you.
Cool.
Where can people find you? Websites, socials? Do you go by a certain name, alias?
So the best Instagrams to find me, and I swear it's not pretentious, it was the only thing available. It's the Mackenzie Ryan. And then that's like more my music page. It has like if you're local, it has like all my show schedules on it. And I put some videos out. I need to do better with posting more content. That's my music stuff. And then that will also link you to my music website. And then if you want to check out my digital art, that is at oh my God, that's at silk.circuit. So silk.circuit. And that's going to have a link to my graphic design portfolio. And that's I'm building that right now. So it won't be up there right now, but that's where you'll find that. And then, that's pretty much everywhere you can find me right now. And then also the podcast, if you're interested in, you know, that's all connected through the Mackenzie Ryan profile.
Cool. I actually lied. I have one extra question for you because I forgot to ask it earlier. It's because you brought up your website and I did click on your website earlier.
Yeah.
What's up with the octopus? Is that like
I was wondering if you were going to ask that.
I thought about it earlier when I was on your, I told you that I don't do a lot of research, but I clicked on your website at least just to not be a scumbag.
Yeah,
and I see like the loading was like the octopus. So like, what's up with it?
So you would be surprised. I get messages on my Instagram probably like 5 times a month. And everyone's like, what the fuck is up with the octopus? So yeah, I'll share it here. So the octopus to me is, it is my spirit animal, but it is a reminder to be resilient and creative and a little mischievous and just kind of weird. They're weird. I had an opportunity to go and play with one in California, and like I just love how odd they are. And it's been my thing for a long time. My mom and I used to text the word octopus to each other when I was in college to let her know that I was like okay and not, in some alleyway. So that was kind of like our like safety word.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
yeah, and now it's just kind of like it's just my symbol, it's my brand really at this point,
That's
which
so
is
cool.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm glad I didn't forget to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, last question for you.
Okay.
And I ask everybody this right at the end of the podcast. If you could give one piece of advice to anybody in the world, whether they're creative or not, whether they're struggling or they're happy or however they're feeling, if you could only say one thing, right? What would that one piece of advice be to somebody?
My one piece of advice to somebody would be to love yourself. Because if you take care of yourself, if you handle just here, if everybody could do that for themselves, then the world would be taken care of. So any anxiety, any stress you have, or, worrying about stuff or not fitting in or feeling like people don't like you, or if you like yourself, none of that stuff will bother you. I promise. I promise. If you just get to the bottom of who you are and accept yourself for who you are and love yourself, you're good. You literally can take over the world.
Well, I can't imagine a better way to end this episode. That was amazing. Again, chill city over on my side. Mac, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Episode 63 has been amazing. I super appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.